Welcome back for another RepVue Roundtable conversation. Today we are joined by Justin Turner from MaintainX. So, hello, Justin.
Hey there, Jordan. How's it going?
It's going well. It's going well. Looking forward to this conversation for sure. This will be a great one, as MaintainX is a company that definitely gets a lot of attention on RepVue. We see a lot of interest in terms of people, both in terms of ratings, but also people asking questions and checking it out. So I think this will be of a lot of interest to folks as we get a chance to learn more about you and the sales culture at MaintainX.
Yeah, I just want to say I'm pumped to be here. Really excited for this. RepVue's been a long-term partner with MaintainX. I think we were founded in the same year, actually, in
Oh,
around
nice.
2018.
Okay.
And since the very early days, we've used RepVue, and it's been a key part of our business. I joke with people sometimes that maybe the most helpful things for salespeople, or just like things that have made life better for salespeople, it's like number one, uncapped commission plans. Number two, AI. Number three might be RepVue. So thank you for all that you do, and really excited to be here today.
I love that. I love that. Perfect. That sounds great. Well, that is a good start. So the goal of this conversation is really to give people out there who might be listening a feel for what it's like to be on the sales team at MaintainX. But let's start with you and kind of like what brought you into sales and what sort of shaped your perspective on sales.
Yeah, I never thought I was going to be in sales when I was growing up. Very early on, I had a different dream, and I thought I was going to be a radio DJ when I was growing up, and actually started working at a local radio station, a small AM station in my hometown in South Carolina, when I was like 13 years old. And I
Cool.
remember going to the radio station owner, and I want a job here. Can you put me on the radio? And the guy goes, well, yeah, we can do that, but if you're going to be on the radio, you got to go out and sell ads to support it.
Oh, nice.
And so
Interesting.
without a driver's license, my mom's like driving me around from business to business, and we went and sold ads for like $10 for a 30-second ad, and in effect, I was paying my own salary by by selling ads on this radio
Interesting.
station. But did that for a number of years, and actually went to college, and still that was my dream, and worked for about a decade in radio for a bunch of different big stations. In North Carolina and South Carolina, talk radio, music radio, everything.
Interesting.
And then I get to my senior year, and I take a look around, and remember, this is right before the Great Recession, so the world was changing a little bit. And I remember I was about to graduate, and I was like sending out like CDs to all these different radio stations like all over the country to try to get a job. And it just hit me. It was like, well, number one, this seems like not such a good life, because like traveling from small city A to small city B,
hmm
and like every 6 months going to a different like radio station job, it doesn't sound all that fun. Number two, the salary was like garbage, so I'd
Yeah.
be like struggling to survive. And then number three, I think it just hit me that maybe I was pretty good at selling, and maybe
Right.
I've been selling all along, that decade that I was in radio. And then one thing led to another, and got my first sales job, and it's been history ever since.
That's sort of one of the things that I saw in just kind of looking through your background is like you've done a lot of the different elements of sales jobs. And it sounds like that started obviously from that first experience that you've had where you're like literally like, I'm going to find my leads by deciding what doors to knock on or whatever that might be. I'd be curious how that has affected, kind of how you think about running the sales team at MaintainX.
People ask me that question in interviews, and it's like, what did I do early in my sales career to position myself to be in the position I am today? And I think that's exactly it. I dipped my toe in a lot of different pools throughout the revenue function and beyond the revenue function of most of the companies I've been at. I was always really curious about things like finance, and I was curious about marketing, and curious about rev ops, and at one point taught myself to, like most startup sales leaders do at some point, administering Salesforce on my own. And I think all of that sort of built to where I am today. And I got my first management job in my 20s, and then away we go. But you're right, it has been curiosity, and just general interest in how other functions within the business run.
Okay, so one thing that's obviously critical in this in selling is being able to deal with like success and failure. So I'd be curious, how have any of the failures throughout your career sort of informed how you lead your team today?
Yeah, sometimes I say I'm like James Taylor. I've seen fire and rain and sunshiny days that I thought would never end. I've seen it all really, and I think those failures or challenges or headwinds have shaped me just about as much as my successes. Startups are hard. So much can go wrong in a startup. They can run out of money. There's no product market fit. The founders might be arguing with each other or with the investors. Like there's so much that can happen there, and I've seen a bunch of that, and I think that builds character over time. I think it allows me to have perspective. It allows me to have patience. It allows me to have pattern recognition of what is going well and what's not going well. Kind of getting back to my early career, that first sales job that I got that I was telling you about, I didn't really research it all that much. I just took the job and moved and started it, and it was bad. It was a
Right, right.
bad sales culture. People were at odds with each other. Seriously, I remember I
Hmm.
started with a group of about 40 different kids from all over the country that had moved into this job, and they were like getting fired in the hallway like 3 days later. I mean, it
Hmm.
was just that cutthroat. And I was very lucky that I stayed in that job for 6 months, and I did well, but I stayed in that job for 6 months, and then I went to a place that had won like best places to work a dozen years in a
Hmm.
row, had an excellent sales culture, very supportive of each other, a great product. And so right back to back, I was able to see at 22 years old, I was able to see
Right.
something that was not very good and something that was great. And again, that gives you perspective on things. And all these years later, almost 2 decades later, I still remember those experiences. And as I've tried to build things on my own and build sales orgs and revenue orgs, those memories of being 22 and seeing so bad and so good right there
Uh-huh.
together have really shaped a lot of my decision making and how I build teams and cultures.
Let's take a pause, sort of, and give a little perspective to people who might be listening um, to this. So, give us your take on just how you would describe what MaintainX does and who you serve.
Yeah, we're a platform for maintenance, repair, and operations to keep the physical world running. That's our mission,
Okay.
right? I think if I was explaining it to like my grandma
Hmm.
and what is MaintainX, I would probably say that we put modern tools in the hands of frontline and industrial workers
Okay.
in a segment that has not historically embraced technology at a high rate, and to buyers who have traditionally been under budgeted, understaffed, perhaps even underappreciated in their organizations, yet literally keep their organizations running.
Hmm.
We're the ones who put the tools in their tool belt to make them safer, better efficient, and to keep their facilities and their operations running at a high level.
Okay, got it. So that gives us some good context, and we'll dig in a bit on some more questions about who you're selling to and things like that. No sales conversation these days would be complete without some perspective on AI. What's your view on sort of AI tools and how they should or maybe shouldn't be a part of the sales process?
They should be part of every part of the sales process, every part of the revenue process. I think that the AI revolution will impact this profession in a way that it hasn't materially changed in maybe 20 or 30 years. It is that impactful. And I believe that every sales professional, whether they're an individual contributor or a manager or an executive, should be embracing AI in their career and becoming experts at using AI. My thought is that maybe it doesn't happen next year or even the year after, but if you're not embracing AI at a high level in your job today in sales or in revenue, then you're likely to get left behind in time. I think it's just that impactful. Now, look, I think if you If you look at where AI has made a material impact on a revenue org right now that's like proven, undebatable, undeniable, it actually would probably be mostly relevant in the post-sales org. I think support, customer
Hmm.
success, implementation, those functions, like to me, it's proven over and over again that not only can you automate more, but you can provide an overall better customer experience through the use of AI. I think that's there. I think what's coming next, things like data, intelligence, automation, all of those things coming to the day-to-day use of a salesperson, that's where it's going to be like proven next, where there's a real
Hmm.
revenue uplift in the utilization of AI.
Okay. So you don't have AI sales reps yet that are closing deals, but it's more a support function for you.
Not yet. Look, we're very AI forward. We want to test and experiment. We want to be on the forefront of anything that we can adopt to, at the end of the day, human beings should be doing human being work. And if we can replace repetitive tasks, if we can replace things that are time consuming, that don't necessarily have to be a human being, that's what we should be doing first. And that in and of itself will lead to revenue.
Got it. Got it. That makes sense. What would you say is one aspect of sales that's actually more important now than it was, let's say, 5 years ago?
Yeah, I think in intelligence, 5 years ago, you could put somebody in a sequence and email them a dozen times and make a dozen cold calls, and you might get a deal out of it. I think that's harder to do today, just going
Hmm.
into accounts blind. There is more intelligence now about prospects, about their companies, about their pains and their challenges and the things that you can solve for them than at any point in the past. So the best sellers out there are the ones who, when they get a prospect on the phone or in a demo or in a closing call, they're the
Hmm.
ones who are the most prepared. Even the most sort of low end buyers, small companies, things like that, they have become accustomed to not getting just a blind cold call. Like
Hmm.
they've become accustomed to even getting a higher level of salesmanship coming from the reps they're working with. And I think that that's changed drastically over the past 5 years.
Interesting. No, that makes a lot of sense. Um, so tell me this: how would you say, if you think about selling for your team at MaintainX, what would you say stands out that's different?
Yeah, that's easy. The answer is our product. I believe it's
Okay.
undebatable, undeniable, factual. MaintainX has the best product in our industry on planet Earth, period. I think you can
Nice.
go to any review site or anywhere, RepVue even, and see
Hmm.
that. And let me tell you, as a person who has worked in some companies that didn't have that, that is a
Hmm.
rare luxury to be able to say that you sell and support something that is legitimately the best out there.
So that is a perfect transition to what we sort of call the hot seat phase of the conversation, which is
Uh,
where we take a look at your RepVue profile and just kind of break it down in terms of picking things that stand out. For this conversation, certainly. Given that you guys have a pretty amazing RepVue score, it's mostly positives, a few negatives or a few other things that we'll ask you about, like there would be in any sales org. But I think most of the conversation will naturally focus on the positives because that's what we see on your RepVue scores. So you mentioned, when I asked you about what's different at the selling a MaintainX, you mentioned the product. And that absolutely is reflected in the score. I think when we look at your RepVue profile, your product market fit score is in the 98th percentile. So let's dig into that a little bit.
our industry is not a new industry. CMMS as an industry, EAM as an industry has been 40 years in the making, something like that. And there are literally hundreds of providers that do CMMS and EAM. I think that MaintainX, what we found as we built the company and built the product, is the one thing that maybe folks hadn't thought of before is the end user experience. Again, the people who use our application are people who turn a wrench for a living. They're out there in a factory floor where it's loud and it's dirty and it's greasy. Having them to use a complicated, clunky, buggy app just isn't in the cards. And so when we were building MaintainX, we went to the front line and we asked for product feedback. What would make you want to use this more? What could make this easier for you to adopt? What would make you just like using it and make it a part of
Mhm.
your day-to-day workflow? And by doing that, we have nailed the adoption and the ease of use side of building a product. And I think that that's maybe the single biggest thing that lends itself to that product market fit score that you're seeing on RepVue.
So one thing I noticed actually in one of the reviews, that I don't think I've ever seen this before in a review, it said, "MaintainX clients are the nicest people on earth," is what it said, which is just notable because it's rare that people sort of comment on their customers that way. Why do you think that would be particularly notable for your
Yeah.
customers?
This is personal for me. My dad's a maintenance director, and it sounds self-serving to say, but yeah, he's a super nice guy too. Look, these are individuals who appreciate being helped. They appreciate being heard, and they appreciate having an advocate. And that's what we've built our revenue engine and frankly the entire company around at MaintainX is to be an advocate of our customer. Take MaintainX out of the equation,
Sure.
just organically, they are nice people. And the impact that can make to a salesperson is okay, no, you're not going to get hung up on 100 times a day or
Right.
cursed
Right.
out 100 times a day when you make a
Hmm.
cold call. Like you're gonna even if it's a no, you're gonna get treated with respect and dignity. And considering you have to do this 52 weeks a year,
Right.
day in and day out, that can make a difference in the overall sort of work-life satisfaction that you have in your profession.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I think then when you take the factor of combining what would be an opportunity where I can actually make a lot of money and also work with really nice people, that's a pretty short list, to be
Yeah,
honest.
yeah.
Yeah, so one thing I like to do for anybody who's listening who might be coming into industry new, let's just define our terms. Use CMMS a couple times. Tell me what that acronym stands for.
Computerized maintenance management system.
Got it. Got it. Okay, so let's get into another area that stands out. And I'll be honest with you, I've had many of these conversations, and I don't know that I've ever talked about this particular rating category on RepVue because it's not usually one that has particularly notable ratings, and that's inbound lead flow. Now, usually I sort of sometimes kind of laugh it off because I've never met a salesperson who says that they get enough leads. And so universally, this is usually our lowest rated category, but it's not only notably high for MaintainX, but even some of the reviews actually mentioned inbound leads as a strength, which is very rare, I will say. So talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah, and to be clear, I don't think you'll meet any salesperson even at MaintainX that says that they have enough inbound leads. They always want more. I think it again is a testament to the product and it's a testament to our business model, the amount of inbound leads that we have. MaintainX is a hybrid PLG company. A lot can be done within the product and the app itself. Every day we have hundreds of individuals and companies who just go to the Apple Store or the Google Play Store, download our app, start using it and eventually turn into an inbound lead that way. And that sort of product love and adoption does create its own sort of inbound channels. We also have a great marketing team, and our CMO is doing a great job of helping through brand and other things to continue to get even more inbound leads on top of that, but it's never enough. We continue to want to scale and scale fast, and we have more mouths to feed as we get more salespeople on the team. So we're always looking for channels to increase inbound lead flow, but it is in a really solid place right now.
That's great. No, I appreciate the shout out to the marketing team. We don't always have enough of those in these types of sales conversations. So good to give the kudos there for sure. So all right, let's talk about comp. When I look at the numbers on MaintainX, what I see is pretty much down the middle in terms of both quota attainment and kind of top earner or base and variable ratings. It's above average, but it's not like as like far to the 90 plus, 95 plus percentile as the other things in your profile. So I wanted to give you a chance to talk about that a little bit. How do you think about comp in the grand scheme of things?
Yeah, salespeople are in this business to make money. That's not lost on me. But also, what should be understood is not all OTEs are created equal. The things that we've talked about already today sort of lead to how we think about our compensation bands. Having a great product that can flex its muscles and help the salesperson sell. Okay, that means that our OTE is not created equal. The amount of inbound leads that we get, and just the amount that the reps can just get demos on their calendar and qualify and go out and close them. Well, that leads to our OTE not being created equal. And here's the last thing I'll say on that is we're in the phase right now as a company to where truthfully we are one of the hottest companies in North America, in terms of tech and SaaS. And as we look forward to 2026, more product innovation, additional product SKUs, we look forward to enabling our reps more through sales enablement and training, more AI tools on the horizon. And so we're doing all these things to continue to scale. And we have to be very disciplined and balanced about how we're hiring, how we're sort of modeling the future of the company to where we don't get into a position to where we grow too slow, but at the same time, we don't want to get over our skis and do it too fast either. So we run the company in a really disciplined way. One thing I'm really proud of in the 5 years I've been here, we've never had a layoff, not through the
Mm,
pandemic, not through 2023. Run the company in a way that our capital efficiency, our client acquisition cost, they're in reasonable territories. And it's just like turning up and down volume knobs and how fast we hire people and that type of thing. I think our OTEs are fair, comparatively speaking. You compare it to a company that is kind of desperate to hire people, and so they
mhm,
offer like a gigantic OTE to get there, and then you get there and the culture is trash or the product doesn't work. Trust me, I've been there.
mhm.
And it just again creates the situation where we think our OTEs, based on the type of company we are and based on all of the great benefits of being at MaintainX, we think that our OTEs are fair and again business sound, which I think sometimes reps don't fully appreciate how well run is the business when they're coming
Yeah.
in and taking a job. Like what is leadership doing to make sure that this company is viable for the long term? I think sometimes that gets lost. We do
Mhm.
everything we can to make sure that it is run in a good way.
Yeah, that's interesting. That touches on two topics that we think about a lot that Ryan Walsh, our CEO, frequently posts on LinkedIn about, which is on the one hand, it's sometimes hard to find a fast-growing company that isn't sort of hiring so aggressively that impacts the existing team, right? You have to have enough opportunity out there so that, as you come on, you don't necessarily see that, okay, well, the next month they're hiring another 20 and those
Hmm.
territories are getting smaller and smaller. And what you mentioned about the lead flow, reflects that it looks like, it sounds like there's plenty of opportunity, which is great. And I also love how that ties into the hiring discipline you're talking about, because as a rep, as somebody who might be looking for a great opportunity from a selling perspective, it's a balance. You want to find an org that is hiring and growing, but not doing that in such an aggressive manner that in 6 months or a year you'll actually sort of regret that move. So that's really interesting to hear.
Yeah,
The other aspect. Oh, go ahead.
yeah. I was just gonna say, and this is kind of like behind the scenes stuff, but I think it's important. Is how modeling works at companies.
Okay.
Sometimes a company will will build a model because they'll go to a board meeting, and in that board meeting somebody
Mhm.
will say our number next year should be X, and so you
100%.
leave that board meeting, and then like no matter what the math says, you're building a plan to get to that number. That's not really how you should do it.
Mhm.
The way in which you should model is a bottoms up approach. What do we have today? What
Yep.
improvements can we make? What does our lead flow look like? What does our street capacity look like? All of those things, and you build it up, and then maybe you take a few bets over the course of the year, a few big swings. Okay, we're going to open up a new geo, we're going to open up a new market, whatever. But maybe you take a few bets, and then you see where that number winds up. But by doing it tops down, you get yourself in trouble because you end up hiring 20 extra reps when you have no way to support those 20 extra reps. So it comes down to like how companies think about their modeling and their target setting and so on.
I think that's a great point. I mean, fundamentally, philosophically, it's the difference between thinking about how many reps can our business model support as opposed
Mhm.
to sort of how much bookings can each rep contribute, and what is the number I need to put in the spreadsheet to get that to my target, which frequently doesn't take into account the fact that, like, well, you may not be able to scale to that degree or as quickly as you want, and that really impacts reps earning opportunity and quality of life.
We hire um, hard at MaintainX. As of right now, I still interview myself every single sales hire that comes through the door at MaintainX. Every BDR, every SDR, everybody, and it's tough.
Okay. No, that really touches on actually one of the reviews that I was going to mention and ask you about, which says specifically, I'll just quote it. It says, "Great culture, great product, fun place to work with a lot of good people. They hire well, so whatever you think will make you stand out, it will require more." So wanted to give you the chance to speak to that. What advice would you have for those sales reps who are considering that in terms of how they should think about the application process at
Yeah,
MaintainX?
take it seriously. There's an old story, and maybe you've heard this one before. When Van Halen was touring, they wrote into their rider when they went to perform concerts that the M&Ms that they left in the green room could have no brown M&Ms. And at a surface level, you think that they're just asking for that to be pricks, right? Like they're just
They're
like,
just diva rock
yeah,
stars.
it's just yeah, they're just being rock stars. But when you ask the band about that, they say, no, no, no. It was actually the opposite. We asked for no brown M&Ms because we wanted to see the facilities that would take that seriously. And if they didn't take it seriously, it would make us ask other questions about like our safety on stage and, will things be set up properly? It was an exercise in measuring their attention to detail. And so look, MaintainX, we're not rock stars, but a lot of our testing and our interviewing, it comes down to how much preparation did the person put in, just attention to detail things. Because trust me, if a candidate will not pay attention to those attention to details in an interview process, they will also not pay attention to those things when they're interfacing with a client, which is a big problem for me. So my advice to any candidate that comes through is to spend time on it, take it seriously, do your research, pay attention to details. It's really, really important for MaintainX.
Interesting. No, I love that. It's the first Van Halen reference I think we've had in these conversations, but I hope it's not the last. So,
I try to bring something new to the table.
all right. So I think that covers, I think, most of the details around those aspects of sales culture and things like that. You guys have way more positives than negatives or criticisms, but there's a few things that people mentioned, and I want to give you the chance to kind of talk about those a bit and get your thoughts on them. So one of them talked about, the challenge of managing different market segments, right? You've got SMB, you've got a mid-market, or you've got enterprise focus. And it sounds like there's a lot of focus on the enterprise. The question was, does that come at the expense of some of the other areas? What would you say to that?
No, I don't think it does. I think enterprise is something that lifts all boats. I made a joke recently that it doesn't matter what company I would be in. If I put on a blindfold and I just walk blindly into a board meeting for that company, I can almost guarantee right now in 2025 that the board is talking about three things. They're talking about AI, and they're talking about pipeline, and they're talking about enterprise. Like I feel like
Mhm.
that's like universally true for most companies, especially those that are at our scale and attempting to do what we're doing. Enterprise is very, very important. You want to get a big exit one day and a big valuation, like you gotta Gotta have big deals and big customers, and so enterprise is critical for our success. But I don't think that it comes at the expense of other segments. In fact, I think that we've overinvested in resources, again, enablement resources, RevOps resources, product resources, even marketing resources for our SMB and mid-market segments. But yeah, we talk about enterprise a lot here, as I think most companies do at our stage and scale.
Okay, so let's get down to some of the nuts and bolts of your org in terms of growth opportunities, in terms of sales. Last I checked, I think you have over 70 sales roles open. Is that, am I counting correctly?
Yeah, thereabouts. Yeah, it changes every
Okay.
day, of course, but thereabouts.
Tell us, how do you structure the team in terms of where people are and kind of how you think about that in terms of these roles that you're hiring for?
Yeah, we have a few different hub offices. Raleigh, where I am, we have a big office in Montreal. We have an office in Miami, an office in San Francisco now. We also have an awful lot of people in Toronto, where we currently do not have an office, but they still get together pretty regularly and hang out. Um, and those would really be considered our hub cities in North America. For entry level type roles, we try to get them close to a hub city. And of course, quite a few of those entry level roles require you to be in office. As you get to more senior roles, we're hiring most everywhere. We're looking for the best
Mhm.
talent, regardless of where they are for those roles. So it really depends role by role. And of course, some functions are a little more gathered in certain hub cities than others.
On the enterprise side, I'm just curious, do you have folks, given what they're selling, is there field sales or people going in person, or is it almost entirely over the phone or virtual?
Yeah, it's very much trending to be more field sales.
Okay,
Still, a lot happens over the phone, over Zooms,
sure.
over Teams, but we believe that it's important to go see customers in person as much as we can. And
What would you say is one habit that, the vast majority of successful sellers at MaintainX have?
yeah, passion level. I've talked a little bit about this already. We have a belief that what we do makes a positive impact. We have a belief in our product. We have an empathy to our customers and an appreciation to our customers. And so I think the individuals who are the most successful at MaintainX are the ones that get that passion level, like they have that fire in their belly to be successful in the morning and when they wake up. I think with that passion level, sort of the next logical step is like hard work. They say that 80% of life is showing up. The hard work is like the showing up part. I think that the individuals who do really well at MaintainX don't think of it as a 9 to 5er. They don't think of it as collect a paycheck and go home. They think of it as I'm going to show up when my customer needs me to show up, and
Mhm.
they just have that little bit of extra giddy up and go that I think really allows them to buy credibility with their customers and do really well here.
How would you talk about or describe the promotion path at MaintainX in terms of, people sort of starting as a direct contributor, individual contributor, and then potentially having the opportunity for promotion, either in terms of managing or in terms of moving up to other customer segments?
Yeah, it's always my preference to promote people internally as much as we possibly can. Of course, there has to be a balance when we're scaling as fast as we are. We can't have like 100% of people come through internal promotion mechanisms, but we should have as many as we possibly can. I think that's one of the great things about being at a company that's scaling this fast is there are opportunities all the time, whether it's for a new manager job that we're opening or sort of the next step in the ladder of sales jobs. Those are coming open all the time, and we really do a good job of, I think, articulating that to the team and giving everyone a fair shake to get those promotions. Our culture is one of a meritocracy. I don't care how long you've been here. I don't care like, how much sales experience you have, all of that stuff. What I care about is results. And if you come in and crush it in your first few months here, your first year here, whatever, that's going to be recognized and you're going to get promoted as a result of that. If you earn it, we'll give you the opportunity to advance your career here. But it's so important that that meritocracy is real, and
Hmm.
we're not just we're not just promoting anybody just because they've been here a long time or something like that.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. All right. So would love to just talk briefly about, from your perspective as a sales leader, how do you feel RepVue has impacted your business?
Yeah, it's been huge. I can remember reps mentioning RepVue in their interviews with me as early as like 2021. And
Mm.
many of those reps are still here, by the way. So it turns out they were really good reps. But I think it's been a huge help for us, and something that I think will continue to manifest as we go into our next phase of growth here.
Yeah, one of the things that I feel most strongly about and best about really with RepVue is that I think MaintainX is a perfect example. There's a lot of noise out there in terms of sales opportunities, and I think a lot of reps, will discover orgs like MaintainX who stand out on RepVue because of the ratings that your team delivers. That in some alternate universe, might not have come across MaintainX in the same way, and so it gives you orgs like yours the opportunity to shine. And really, that's our purpose. That's why we exist, is to bring that transparency and then kind of let those orgs rise to the top. So it's awesome to hear your story there.
I believe that there are only two publicly traded tech companies on RepVue that have above a 90 RepVue score. And
Okay.
a lot of times in interviews, maybe the most common question I get asked is, "Hey, I see your culture online. I see all the good things that people are writing about your company. How are you going to keep it the same?" And I always tell them that that's actually the wrong question. It's not about keeping it the same. Every person you hire, every customer you bring on, every partner you work with, that does inherently change your culture. Even if it's by a small margin, it changes your culture every single time that happens. So you're never going to keep it the same. The real question is, as you grow and you mature and you evolve, are you moving your culture in a positive direction, or is it going backwards? And I think so often companies, as they grow and they get sort of towards that IPO moment, and they're prepping for IPOs, and they're making sure all the numbers match and all the stuff you got to do there. I think sometimes they forget that culture is still important at that
Hmm.
phase. And as we move MaintainX forward into the future, it's my goal not to be like the third tech company that's that's public and has above a 90 review score, but I want to be like number one.
Hmm.
I want to pave the way for everyone else to show that as you grow and you scale, there doesn't have to be a downswing in your culture and the way people enjoy working there, that type of thing, that it can actually go up in a positive direction.
You brought it up, so I have to ask. You mentioned IPO. That's something obviously a lot of sellers think about as the potential opportunity to make money, not just from their commissions, what they sell, but potentially from equity in the long term. What do you say to either your team or to people looking to consider applying to MaintainX in terms of what the future holds for MaintainX in the near future? Is that something you can comment on at all?
Yeah, I'll comment on it. I don't think it's any big secret to say that Chris, our CEO, and myself and others, our long-term vision is we do see an IPO in our future. That's what we want to do, and it's exceptionally rare in 2025. I think what
Sure.
24 tech
Hmm.
companies IPO'd last year in 2024. The smallest number in a very long time. So we're operating in sort of rarefied air to do that, and in order to do that, it's like we're going to the Olympics and the only option is to win the gold medal. So silver's not good enough, bronze isn't good enough.
Hmm.
But we do see our path as an IPO. We think it'd be a shame all of this that we've built, and a great product with great customers and something that's truly making an impact, just packaging it and selling it to the highest bidder
Hmm.
one day, which may not be a good thing for our customers and our clients. It might be, but it might not be. Yeah, I think that would be tough. Look, it's hard to predict the future. I don't know what the economy is going to look like. I don't know what the future holds. I don't have a crystal ball there, but I can say that, yeah, our vision is to take this baby public. All we can do is operate in the now, and do everything possible today for us to get there.
Love it. Well, I appreciate you sharing that for sure. So it's hard to predict the future, but to close things out, I'm going to ask you to do it anyway. Give me a couple thoughts, maybe one or two or three predictions that you would have for 2026, that you are expecting around sort of sales or technology in general.
Yeah, a few of those we've already talked about a bit. Again, I think AI will continue to revolutionize things. I continue to see that as something that will meaningfully impact 2026. I think the other things, our customers will be more educated and knowledgeable
Hmm.
coming into a buying cycle than they ever have been before. More of their decision will have already been made before they even talk to a salesperson. And as a result of that, having a great product is, of course, a big key, but also great content, industry content, being a great steward of whatever community you're working in a sales org. I think that's going to be a really important piece of selling in 2026 is just helping buyers understand why your product is better before they even agree to talk to a salesperson or maybe even agree to go to your website and check it out. And then the final thing is similar. I also think our sellers will be more educated than ever before. We no longer work in a world where, again, you make 100 dials and you do some cold calls and you're gonna instantly get dollars out of that. You have to come to the game ready to play. And so I think the sellers that embrace that and who are creative and find ways to solve pains for their clients, perhaps even before the clients know that they have those pains, will be the best sellers going into the next several years of selling.
Excellent. Excellent. Yeah, I mean, our goal for this conversation is to give sellers out there a little color, obviously, around what it's like to work at MaintainX, and also to give them some things to consider, if they wanted to, take part in the significant growth opportunity that you've described. So, I'm pretty confident that we've done that in this conversation. So thanks so much for
Yeah.
joining us, Justin.
Before we go, I have to ask you one thing.
Hmm. Sure.
We've been talking a lot today about
Hmm.
what my perspective on the culture of MaintainX is and what a great sales culture looks like.
Yeah.
Can can I show it to you? Would that be
Yeah.
okay?
Let's do
All
it.
right. Jordan, today we've been talking about MaintainX and what it means to have a great culture and what our culture is. I thought it'd be great to show you what it looks like. So if you'll let me do that, I'm going to show you, okay? Here we go. Into our BDR bullpen. Okay, everybody, I've got Jordan from RepVue on the line. Yeah. You guys like RepVue? Yeah. You guys like working at MaintainX? You guys getting any deals today? What? Yeah? Thanks so much, Jordan. Great to be with you today.